Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. I'm so glad you could join me this afternoon. I have a pretty little card for you that is a continuation of what I started earlier this week, and that is using some of these beautiful designer series papers before they go away. And I'm kind of stuck in perennial essence. So I've got what I'm calling flowers and lace thank you card. And it's a pretty little card, very striking, and actually pretty easy to do. So let's just get started. Okay, here is my card. And it's using some of that pretty perennial essence paper there and here. And I used a die cut on this piece of perennial essence. I die cut the bottom of this little piece here, so and that is the inside of the card. And so, like I said, I'm calling this Flowers and Lace Thank You card, and it's really pretty simple. The die set that I am using, or the stamp set that I'm using, is Inspiring Iris. And this is meant to kick off my May, I'm a little bit late, but my May online card class. And this is a bonus card out of that class. So I'm going to demonstrate this one. This one will be public. The other 4 cards for this card class will be private. The card class uses the Inspiring Iris and the Perennial Essence papers, and so I'm using this little thanks on this card. And so in the kit that one would get to do my online card class, you get all of the material to make this card as well. So let me tell you what it takes to make this card. I'm using a piece of Whisper White that is 8.5 by 5.5 scored and folded at 4 1/4. And I have 2 pieces of So Saffron that are 4 by 5 1/4. Then I have a piece of Melon Mambo that is 5 1/8 by 2 7/8, and a piece of this pretty designer series paper from the Perennial Essence that is 5 inches by 2 3/4. And then in addition to that, you will need a piece of Whisper White scrap to cut out your sentiment, and you'll need an additional scrap of this designer series paper, and I'll show you what I did with that. And in order to cut out these pieces, you need a little piece of scrap, and then I'll show you the dies that I've used. I used the Ornate Borders die set, and I don't even have this on a card yet, but the Ornate Borders includes this die. Aren't they pretty? And they cut out edges or full pieces of card. And so I cut one out in white, and I'm using that, a little piece of it, to back my thank you. And then I've cut out a piece of, using this die, the designer series paper. And all your designer series paper has to do is be long enough to go across the card. So this one's 5 1/2. And I've cut it here so that it will decorate this inside lip of the card. So it adds something to the front, and then when you open it up, it becomes the decoration for the inside of your card. I love cards like this that have a short side, and it just makes them very interesting, I think. And so what I did with this is I put this on my Perennial Essence paper and ran that through my die cutting machine, and this is what I got back. And it just kind of depends on where you die cut, what colors you get, but it matches absolutely this and picks up the yellow that I've picked here. So let's just get started in doing this. And let's see, I've also used some of the tulle polka dotted ribbon. I think it's just so pretty, and I thought it went particularly well with this. All right, well, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our card base, and I have cut off 1 1/4 inches off of the edge of this card front. So I'm going to bring out my trimmer here and set this down at 1 1/4 right there, and I'm going to cut that piece off. Okay, now we have a card base that looks like this. The other thing I did was I used the Ornate Border die here, and there's a die that goes all the way across here and just cuts a decorative edge for you. And so I've already run that one through my machine, but I thought I would leave it attached until we got to the video here. So I'm just very carefully going to take that off. And then there you see I've got that pretty little border. I'm going to knock those pieces out with my take-a-pick tool. This piece goes on here, centered, and comes off the edge of the white to give us this little lace border. And I think I can just go ahead and lay that down on the card. And so I'm putting my glue every place except on the lacy border here. And I'm going to get my border around the top here just the same. And there we go. There we've got our top piece on here. Then I'm going to mount this beautiful piece of designer series paper on this piece of Melon Mambo, and I've left a scant 1/8 of an inch border around the edge of that, and we're going to go ahead and add that as well. There we go. We've got our piece on there. Then I need a piece of this ribbon to go across the bottom. I suppose I could wrap it around and tie it, but I don't find that very efficient. So I am just going to snip off a piece of this ribbon here on the bottom. And I'm going to grab my silicone mat, add a little bit of snail. This ribbon does have a right side and a wrong side, although it's kind of hard to tell. But one side is smooth and one side has the raised bumpiness to it. So I'm going to set that down right here, right even with the bottom of the edge of the designer series paper, and put that in place and wrap that around on the back side. Now, as the result of this being such open weave, the sticky is coming through. So what I'm going to do is use my embossing buddy to go over the top of that ribbon and sort of de-stick that. And there we go. I've got that now so that nothing sticks to it, and that's just fine. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is make a very small bow out of this ribbon. This ribbon is kind of tricky to tie just because it's got so many edges on it. It has a tendency to catch on itself, and you just have to be firm with it in order to get it to do what you want it to. And so there is the beginnings of my bow. And I'm going to keep pulling this down to quite a small bow here. See if I can train my tails down a little bit. You know, all bows require some fiddling. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a little interruption there. And so now I am thinking that I left off right when I was finishing up my little bow to put on the front of my card. And so I'm just going to go ahead and cut off the tail on that and get that ready to go right on the side here. So now the next thing to do is to add this piece to the front of our card right here, and I'm just going to use snail to do that. And center this on the piece of yellow. Oh, what I wanted to tell you was when you set up your yellow to do this border, what I did was I set up my card piece on my grid paper so that I had one edge of the paper here on a line that ended in an inch mark. So this is set at the 10-inch mark. And then I took each one of these squares on your grid paper is 1/4 of an inch. So in about 4 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, is an inch. Then I took my border die, because I knew how much I wanted to cut off. And so what I did was I set up my border die, and I'll take that little piece of tape off, and set it up so that I could see the inch mark that I made in pencil on either side. Make sure this side is lined up, and then I moved the whole assembly just past the pencil mark. So it's like an inch and a dollop. But using your grid paper, I can no longer see my mark on that side, and I can no longer see my mark on this side. This side I know is absolutely straight, so I'm convinced that this piece is on here straight now. Then I'll put my little piece of washi tape over here, and so I'm absolutely sure that's going to cut straight across the bottom. So that was what I ran through my die cut machine to get this yellow border here on the bottom. So, all right, so now we have that piece done. Now we're going to add this. This is So Saffron, and the So Saffron color is just as soft and pretty as it can be. And so I'm going to set this up to go on the inside of my card along here. And you know, once you have your die cutting done, this thing is just about as easy as anything to put together, and yet it looks very complex, and it's not. Okay, so there we go. Now I've got that there. Now we've got this, and the thing that I did was cut this out. Oh, should have done that before I put that piece on. That's all right. We'll make it work. You see it's going to be, this is cut a little long. And so what I want to do is set this down, and I want some of those flowers to come right off the edge of this. But it looks like I need to take about 1/8 of an inch off of this end, and like that. Let's see how close I came. Just a little bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use my silicone mat and my dot runner, and I'm going to add some snail on the back of these flowers, particularly the ends, so that I get this to stick down just the way I want. The silicone mat is just magic because the glue doesn't stick to it. and what little bit does just peels right off. So, and that way I get glue on all of those little spots in between, and it doesn't leave big gloppy pieces in the middle of the delicate cuts. Okay, so now I'm going to set this down so that it is right along the edge of my So Saffron, and I'm going to inch it up here, and there we go. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I just love that. Don't often think about die cutting designer series paper, but why not? The next thing I'm going to do is see if I can find my glue eraser. There it is. And I'm just going to go over the edges to see if there's any extra glue showing through any of those places. And it's these kinds of touches, taking a minute to get rid of the excess glue around the edges or in the little holes. And I think that's part of what makes your work special. That people really look at it and they don't see any of those kinds of ends or issues. And there we go. Now I'm also going to go, just for grins, with my embossing buddy over that, just in case I missed any little pieces of glue. And there. And so now when I close that, how special is that? Oh my gosh, that's just gorgeous. And really, we could make this card open this way, but I kind of like the idea of it this way. All right, so next I have my piece of scrap of white, and I have my little thanks stamp. It's just curved and it's just as cute as it can be. And I need my Memento ink, and I'm going to ink that up. I'm going to get a couple of layers underneath me here. Take that off because I don't have my Pierce mat handy. And add another silicone mat to the top of that, make a cushion. And do my stamping right, not too close to the edge or the bottom. Get this good and inked up. That's the nice thing about photopolymer. You can see right through it and see how much ink you've got on it. And go ahead and stamp that thanks. Isn't that cute? And then I would put this piece on here with a little bit of washi tape and cut that out at my machine, but I've already done it. So there's my thanks that I cut out ahead of time. And then the other thing that I cut ahead of time was this piece of Whisper White that I did the same die cut that I did on the designer series paper. So I wanted to be prepared a little bit ahead of time. Isn't that pretty, just like that? Oh gosh, that's just gorgeous. Well, what I did was I made some cuts. This end seems to work pretty well because it's got a leaf already on it here, and I just have to trim up the edge so that it looks like it fits. And I know I'm going to set my thanks along here, so maybe I just need to cut around this flower here. So all I'm going to do then is cut around that flower where it makes the most sense. And then this is ready to go across here and go onto our card here. I think that makes for an interesting backing. Now, what I did was I used a sponge that I have here and petal pink ink. I'm going to just scrunch up my sponge and get some of that ink on there, And what I did was I just flicked around my thanks sentiment. And then I also used my sponge and went around this entire little flower piece and sponged a little bit of the ink kind of all around this piece and a little bit on the top of the image. Like it's kind of hard to get in there, so I'll just put my sponge in there and kind of twist it, and then I get what I want. Okay, so now there's my flower completely sponged, and I have my sentiment sponged, and I'm thinking that I would put that on there like that, or like that. Actually, I think I like it this way. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of snail to the back of my sentiment and then get it set on my flower the way I want it, and I think that looks lovely. And then I'm going to take some dimensionals and put them on the back of this sentiment piece, and because it extends so far, I'm going to cut some of these bones along the edge here in very small pieces so that I can put a dimensional piece along the edge here and give those flowers some support. So right there, okay, I think that'll work. Now this is a bonus card for my May online card class, which is now up on my blog. I think I gave you until the 25th of the month to sign up for that class, and then I will have the material out no later than June, depending on if I can get everything. It's a little tricky now with Stampin' Up, with things being delayed because of coronavirus, so but we should be good. All right, so now we have just a few finishing touches left to put on, and I have my bow, which is going to go on this side, and I've got a glue dot here, and I'm actually going to add a couple of glue dots, one in the middle of my knot, one a little bit to the left, and one a little bit to the right of that knot, so that I have 3 glue dots there, so this thing isn't going anywhere. And I'm going to set that down right here on my tulle polka dot ribbon. And there we go. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. I just love it. Some pieces of the Ornate set are a little overpowering for me because there's so much lace, but I love a little bit of lace. And I thought that went well with this ribbon on here. Okay, so next I have a little bit of bling, because we've got to have a little bit of bling. And I'm using up what's left of the pinks on my Noble Peacock rhinestones. That one took off. Okay, so what I did was I put rhinestones in the centers of a couple of these flowers here, and then I put a giant one on the center of this flower, cover up those little holes, and I put one right here on my sentiment. And you know, they all call to me a little differently. I think I'm going to add one up here on that one. So there we go. That is the project for today. I'm very pleased with it. And thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. And or you could join my team. The prize draw for the month of May is a bundle of your choice out of the new catalog. And so I just got my catalog in the mail today, so I've been going through, and if you've put an order with me in the last 6 months, there's one on the way to you, and got a couple of others going out to people. And if you aren't associated with the demonstrator and you'd like to get a catalog, just let me know. Email me. My email and telephone number and my blog, everything is listed down below the video. And just write to me whichever way you can, and I'm more than happy to send you a copy of the catalog. So this is the extra bonus card for my online card class, and my online card class this month features the Inspiring Iris stamp set, and there are 8 cards in my class, 2 each of 4 different designs, and the product package is very generous. There's a lot of material that you'll get if you sign up for one of my classes. It's up on my blog, www.ingenuity.com, and like I said, I think I've given until the 25th of the month to sign up, and then I'll order the material and get it sent to you. It's the kind of thing that you can sign up and pay for it, do everything right on my blog. And it's a pretty reasonable class this time because there's no die set to go with this. So I've included some re-inkers and some paper and some rhinestones and all kinds of material. It's a fun experience if you've not done one before. So that's it for me. I'll be back soon with more cards, more tips, and more projects. Bye now.